Welcome to the breakdown, folks. It's February 12th, 2020. We're on episode 5 of the breakdown, brought to you by Do Not Peak Entertainment. Eventually, I'm going to have so many episodes that we just say what week it is. Episode 222, 2022. Welcome. I'm Sir Scrooge. Anyway, let's get right into it. Big show this week. Not as many little topics and a couple really big topics. We're going to talk about Call of Duty. We're going to talk about Overwatch League again. Talking about viewership numbers over the weekend. Lots of esports over the weekend. So we're going to talk a little about viewership numbers. Counter-Strike, big news as well. We know now what Flashpoint is. We have format. We have more information. We have a name that broke during last week's show. No longer B-Site, now officially called Flashpoint. So that's good stuff. Blast had another weekend. And we're going to talk about this for sure today. The controversy that is ruining the professionality and the mainstream acceptance of esports is teabagging in game. We're going to get to that towards the end of the show, though. Hold that thought. If you've got questions, comments, concerns, all that kind of stuff, as usual, we're going to wrap up with a Q&A at the end of the show. Use DM Peak in the Twitch chat. Tyler's going to grab that question, throw it in a document for us, and then Jason's going to hit me with a bunch of questions at the end of the show, as he always does. Teabagging. It is literally ruining esports. I don't know if I can get through the show. I almost want to talk about teabagging right now, but I'm not gonna. Not gonna do it. Jason's gonna yell at me. Oh, I can do it. Jason said I can do it. No, we're gonna save it for the end. Ludicrous terms that are happening with the outrage culture of teabagging. Anyway, let's get into the weekend. And again, just a gentle reminder, if you've never seen this show, this is a weekly opinion/news show. This is not just a news show where Scott's going to walk you through all the scores and all the roster moves of your favorite game. Those are other websites and other shows that do a great job of that part of gaming and esports. This show is about things that piss me off or excite me each week, and that's what we're going to talk about. So yes, I do talk about the Call of Duty League a lot, and I do talk about Overwatch a lot, because these are really big experimental leagues in the space of esports, right? If they fail, they will send a ripple through all sorts of investment, whether it's sport team owner investment, VC investment. It'll send a shiver down the game developers who are deciding if they want to go to a franchise system. So we talk about it a lot. So let's get right into Call of Duty. Call of Duty had their second stop of their new CDL league structure. This time, not all teams attended, but 8 teams went to London. The Royal Ravens hosted their first homestand. And that was in the Copper Box, which is an Olympic arena inside Olympic Park in London. Been there, done that. Did a Gfinity event years ago with Richard and Duncan. That VP won. It was a nightmare of an event, but not because of Copper Box, just because Gfinity was figuring out how to do live production. But anyway, so they started out, I think, with a whole lot more production errors than they had in week 1. And again, as you roll into each of these homestands, you get a slightly different production company involved, whether it's in the venue or on site, trying to kind of manage the project each week. So they're going to have day one jitters every single homestand, right? Because you've got new elements involved every time. Call of Duty, I think, in some regards, very lucky and very spoiled over the last couple of years, because MLG ran the circuit from open bracket to the venue event, in the building, all the teams, all the people, as well as they also ran the broadcast. And so you had a continuity of product all the way through, right? Well, you don't really have that continuity anymore if you're a Call of Duty fan. You do have Esports Engine involved in some homestands and in some events, in some capacity for some teams, depending on who hires them, but they are no longer the official, captain of the Call of Duty ship, so to speak. And it shows. It frankly shows, right? This Call of Duty event, while I would say great action, they got better at their in-game observing. The games were exciting. I think in some regards it's very Counter-Strike-like when you start looking at search and destroy. It's a game type within Call of Duty that is basically Counter-Strike's, defusal mod. But tons of audio issues when they started. They had audio out of sync in-game, so the perspective of who they were showing in-game didn't match up with the guns being fired, so they had sync issues, or they were the wrong observer audio versus observer video, so that kind of plagued them day one. Crowd audio, mics up, down, all over the place, and again, London brings a good Call of Duty crowd. If you're familiar at all with Call of Duty, you know this. I'm not making this up. And it seemed like at times that they weren't working those crowd mics well because you had lots of people cheering and yelling and singing and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. So that seemed to be a detriment that they couldn't quite get the crowd mix going because it was a crowd that was very hyped. They always are in London for lots of esports, but certainly for Call of Duty. Beer stack and all sorts of fun stuff. One of the biggest things that jumped out to me, though, in watching it, and again, like this weekend, I had like 4 different streams up, right? They had an issue that ended up being fairly systemic. They would go to commercial break too soon. And what I mean by that, hey, this is Frankie. I'm here at the London studio. We'll be right. And she's starting to say, we'll be right back, blah-bitty, blah-bitty, blah. And they cut her off mid, like, throw to a commercial or somewhere else, right? And they did this a lot. It's one thing, and I noticed it early, and I was like, okay, someone's hitting the button early. This is fucked up. Like, either the TD or the director is calling for commercials to be run too early because literally the commercial would start running and someone would either be closing the desk segment or it would be Frankie on stage, closing a segment, or it would be the 2 casters that were getting ready to do a match that had to throw somewhere. And it was continually interrupted by the commercial break. So then I started thinking, why is this happening? This can't just be the TD or the director just being too early, right? Director basically, depending on the show, director generally is the one calling all the orders. Ready 2, take 2, ready comms on gold, take gold, right? So either he was calling that too early and the TD just listens and hits the buttons when he's supposed to, or the TD is doing both jobs. It often happens, and he's going too early. But it happened too much for me to think it was just a mistake. So what I think was happening, I don't have any confirmation of this, but what you often see in traditional sports, and we're starting to see more and more in esports, is content, commercials especially, are run somewhere else. They're run remotely from an office somewhere, from a stage somewhere different, not in the truck that's doing the live show. And so if that makes sense that that's what was happening, they were running these ads somewhere else. And there was a delay between the truck and whoever was running the ads, right? And what I mean by that is there's an encode delay, right? There is a time it takes for the show that we're doing right now to get to you, right? And depending on what encode you're watching, what resolution you're watching, all of those things can factor in, YouTube has those options as well, can factor how close to real time you are as if you were at home, or the guy who's remoting out of wherever, right? So I think what was happening was the truck was calling for the ad because they're done. Frankie finishes her speech, and the truck goes, roll the ad. But the guy who's rolling the ad hears that command in real time, but his world is delayed in the sense of the content that is still being shown, right? Frankie is still talking in his world when he hits the ad button, right? We've seen this in Twitch a lot over the years until people learned how Twitch ran their ads, right? If you go to break and you start your timer and you hit the ads right away, you're going to step on people who are still watching the encode from the show because it's delayed for them, right? So that's why we all now go to a break. We put up a timer. We wait about 30 seconds for that timer to be good and going. Then we run our Twitch ads, because then you don't have the chance of stepping on that delayed content. It could be a guy watching on a phone, a guy watching on shit internet in a different country. And it just seemed like Call of Duty didn't get that memo yet. And they were continually going to break on all their talent, right? It didn't happen once or twice. It happened a lot. And so that was kind of fucked up, right? Again, I think generally they've got great casters. They've got a great desk. I know Lottie's getting a lot of shit because she's not Katie, but Lottie's her own person. She runs her desk her own way. I think she was fine. I think Frankie got a lot of love before they went live, and then seemed like she got a lot of grief from the Call of Duty people, like, who is this? She doesn't know our game. What the hell, and she's also great at her job, right? What I saw a lot of was like, bring Jess back, bring Katie back, and we get this all the time in esports when it comes to talent, right? Our talent is built up to us in a bigger way than regular sports builds their talent up. You don't see the NFL every week announcing who's broadcasting what games with a graphic and who's the camera operators. Like we all hype up our casters as they're a little bit more important to us, right? They're a little bit more part of our team, right? You don't see these kind of announcements and this kind of hype in professional regular sports, right? It's just not that big of a deal to those fans that who's casting the match, who's calling it, who's running the desk. So out of that comes an extra set of fandom for these people that are doing the talking, right? I noticed this when I was a desk host, right? I would get a lot of shit and I would get a lot of love. Like, Scoots sucks, get Red Eye sucks, get Scoots back. It's all an acquired taste, right? So what I didn't like this weekend was people were still talking about bring the other people back. Like, and that's just not fair to the people that are there, right? Like, criticize people on what they should be criticized for, not that they took a job of someone who you liked, right? Like, if you got a problem with a desk host, you got a problem with an interviewer, you got a problem with a caster, give them constructive criticism. But like, you suck, I want Jess back, it just doesn't help. It helps nobody, right? Doesn't help Frankie figure out what she's fucking up. I used to be terrible about reading all my criticism, right? Good and bad. Because out of the negative and out of the positive, you find this middle ground that kind of tells you, oh shit, I should work on that. I say and again too much, right? I used to say Australius, like we're from Australia. I used to get shit for that, right? But so talent should watch themselves. Like, I watch this show every night. I do a live rebroadcast at 7 o'clock every night. So I can watch my show to see how I did, right? And interact with chat that I can't really do today. Anyway, I know I'm kind of getting on a tangent about Call of Duty talent, but like, they're all good, right? They're all good at their jobs, right? And I think you don't need to tear down somebody else to praise or wish you had somebody else still there, right? And if you've got constructive criticism, give it to these people. They will take it in. But telling someone they suck gives them no feedback and just makes them not want to listen to any feedback, right? So just be nuanced with your feedback. Holding up a sign behind Lottie saying, I want Bedford back, that's kind of fucked up, man, right? Again, love that you're standing for people that aren't on the broadcast and you like them, but you're tearing down the people that did get hired, and there's a better way to do that, right? So Call of Duty stuff, again, I think the event went good. We had Chicago win. The Huntsmen are victorious in the first kind of bracketed tournament. They do it like a bracketed tournament. You can see on our big screen here, they don't give out a trophy. They don't have a big award ceremony. You earn points every week for these homestands, and there is prize money involved, right? So Huntsmen, while they don't get a big award ceremony and a big trophy, they do make some extra prize money, and they obviously have a boatload of points going into Atlanta, which is the next homestand for the Call of Duty League. But I like this. Because they started, when CDL announced their format, it was very much Overwatch-y. And what I mean by that is it's a homestand that each team plays each other a little bit for points and nothing else matters. There's no end game. You don't win the weekend in Overwatch. You don't. You win some points, right? There's no, what are you building towards on Saturday and Sunday, right? You're building towards someone being in a final. So Call of Duty, after they even announced what they were going to do, they changed it and said, nope, we're going to go back towards kind of a tournament format. Still, no one's a big winner. It's still up for points, but it's a structure that we're used to seeing, right? And I think, again, Overwatch should probably look at exactly what Call of Duty is doing and think about, maybe our homestands would have a little bit more juice to them, and people wouldn't just think they're throwaway regular season matches if there's a little bit more to play for each week, right? You get into a weird thing, though, that, do the homestands have the same number of people? Are they fair to have them tournaments because not all the teams go to all the homestands? Is this homestand more stacked? So is this tournament harder to win this week? So it's not cut and dry. But I like the idea that there's a path there towards Sunday's final game, right? It means something. So their next stop is Atlanta. And that'll be the Atlanta Reign, I believe. No, is it the Reign or is that the Overwatch team? It's Atlanta. Oh, it's FaZe, right? FaZe is the Call of Duty team. FaZe the fuck up in Atlanta. So again, we'll be keeping an eye on that. But again, lots of production issues, and I think we're going to see that a lot with these teams that are now tasked with kind of helping with production that they've never maybe done before, right? So we'll see how the next one goes, but the audio sync and the the commercial thing was just, it was painful to watch after a while. And I think they still have lighting issues with their talent. You know, they go to the casters before and they're very dark and very shittily lit, and just little things. Just throw a little bit more light on these guys, right? Especially what we noticed in Call of Duty. They did 7 best of 5s on the final day. And they had this like hype 2v2 tournament jammed in there, right? They had to wrap up their show death segment very early because the venue was closing and kicking people out. So, like, you never want to be in that situation, right? You're already against the wall with 7 best of 5s. Then you had a delayed hype match. But what I noticed is, you know, they used the casters to fill a lot. The desk was closed, so to speak, and the casters had to fill previous to this hype tournament, which was 2v2, right? And they weren't well lit. It doesn't take much to throw an extra light or two up there, right, and white balance your cameras. But again, I always look at things with a production eye, and maybe catch things that a lot of people at home don't catch, but it's the curse of my life. All right, so that's CDL. Let's move on to the other franchise league of Activision Blizzard's. Got to talk about Overwatch again this week because they debuted, right? We've talked about them a lot the last couple shows, whether it was talent issues, whether it was the new ban system that's coming into play, but now they've had their first series of homestands, right? And so it's worthy to talk about. First thing I want to talk about that kind of popped before they were even live was the idea of, and it actually affects both leagues, practice conditions for players, right? And how they're working out for these two leagues, right? We saw the first week in Minnesota, Aches, pro player for LA's Gorillas, tweet about practice conditions were delayed, the internet wasn't working, they couldn't practice. And one of the things he kind of alluded to is, I bet Minnesota's having no problem practicing because they get to practice in their home headquarters while we're waiting, right? So you instantly, both these leagues have this perception that the home team can practice whenever they want, however they want, because they have facilities in these cities. And they're tasked with setting up standards that the leagues are setting, you know, how many setups, how much practice time does each team get each day, but they're not affected by those things, right? So even if the team that is hosting the homestand does exactly what they're supposed to do, and they set up per Activision Blizzard specs, however many stations, and they secure it, they monitor it, all those things, they can still go to their office and practice where they practice every day. Is that fair? Is that the advantage of hosting a homestand? Or is the advantage of hosting a homestand that you build your local fan base, you entertain them, you activate there, you do all sorts of cool shit? Should you also be able to practice 24/7 when your opponents cannot? Now, and I don't know which way to go on this. Should they limit what the home team can do, or should they make it so the traveling teams can practice as much as they want? That's what they should do, right? And so this debate started online, as always, as they all do. One of the players for Overwatch kind of tweeted, like, we don't get to practice today, 10 hours in a hotel, what do we do? And that led to a conversation that a lot of people negatively jumped on Envious, Hastro, Dallas, Fuel, if you will. They were hosting a homestand. The two Overwatch homestands were hosted in Dallas by the Fuel and in New York City by the New York I almost said Subliners. That's the Call of Duty team by the New York XL. The Excelsiors is their Overwatch team. So we had two homestands going, and we had a remote broadcast also happening in LA where they ran the Watchpoint desk, the analyst desk, right? So this debate kind of started by Void, one of the Overwatch players, saying, today's not our day to practice, we practice tomorrow, whatever it was. And so that got me into a debate with Hastro. Spector, who is one of the guys that helps run the Overwatch League, put a tweet out basically saying, hey man, we've talked about this before. The league and the teams have agreed on a set of requirements for practice that the host team needs to provide. Dallas did that, they've been great, they met those obligations. And basically saying this is a non-issue. Like, we've already talked about it. Everyone is doing what they're supposed to do. Dallas isn't in trouble. They're not being bad guys. They set up what the league is mandating for setups. And basically how it works is there's X amount of setups in the arena. secured, all those things. Obviously not enough for every team to have their own, or they wouldn't have set times. They would just be like, from 8 to 8, you can scrim, right? But they give them windows of time, right? Now, that's great that he addressed it, and we talk about him a little bit more today. He was very vocal this weekend, as he should. That's one of his jobs. But I brought up the topic to Hastro because Hastro was defending himself. Hastro, if you don't know, is the CEO of all those Dallas teams. And they were getting a lot of grief, like they were intentionally fucking up everyone else's practice schedule, so the Fuel could do better, right? And he basically defended it. Hey, we did exactly what we're supposed to do. If teams want more time, they're supposed to go find a LAN center or figure out their own thing. But we've done exactly what we've been asked of us. What it also sounds like is New York did exactly what was asked of them and then some. So there was this like New York's doing a better job than Dallas when it comes to player practice conditions. So I started a conversation with Hastro that started kind of snarky on both our ends, but I think ended up really in a good place. Counter-Strike, we lean into a lot. I lean into a lot. Like, this game has been around for a very long time. Multiple versions, multiple business models, multiple people caring. So a lot of things Counter-Strike has figured out over the years that work best for players, right? We had this same scenario for years that at the venue, an ESL or a DreamHack or whoever would set X amount of practice rooms. And at least in Counter-Strike, it was generally almost like you got your own. But what would happen, and I went to a bunch of these events and saw it firsthand. So they set up the practice rooms oftentimes are where the group stages are also played, right? For some of these tournaments. So you've got, table of 5 guys in a row, nice backdrop behind them. So when they do the group stage stuff and they bring the cameras in, it looks nice, it's lit, all those good things. The problem is right next to Astralis' table is a pipe and drape barrier, pipe and drape, literally cloth barrier, and right on the other side of that is the next team. And right on the other side of that is the next team. Or right behind this backdrop is 5 more teams. No sound isolation, right? So when I talk to players, they'd be like, Scott, we play these guys next. We can't sit here and have a normal conversation about what we're going to ban, what our pistol's going to be like, because they can hear it. And they can't do the same thing because we can hear it, right? And who's on the other side of the curtain listening? Who, and so it becomes a practice place where you can kind of warm up, but you really can't practice, talk about strats. It's not secure, right? Other events have done, Face It, for their major, they did construction trailers, nice, big, long construction trailers that, you would put a temporary office on a construction site for, right? It's kind of what they are. The problem was they all had windows. Windows all had to be open because it was hot. And again, I could stand right outside the window and listen to everything Astralis was talking about. Not really good as a practice environment. So over the years, and E-League kind of started this. E-League in their studio gave every team their own room. Door, close it, soundproof. The rooms weren't that big. They were like little closet-y kind of rooms. But again, it was your own place. You could close the door. You could securely talk about your matches, right? And that started the whole conversation with TOs about, hey, this is better. Give us our own space somewhere, right? So we can actually use it properly, right? It's not meant to be a little warm-up where you do, gun game or DM to warm up. Like, they do that on stage as they're setting their settings. It's not for warm-up. It's for figuring out what the fuck you're going to do against the next team. So out of this, many conversations with TOs over the years for Counter-Strike. And the players decided, and now most TOs are kind of leaning towards it, especially when they can, hotel rooms. Hotel rooms. Greatest idea ever, right? And so the way this works is when you're dealing with a hotel, you say to the hotel, we need 6 extra rooms or however many teams you have. We need you to clear the furniture out of those rooms. We'll pay a clear fee. Hotels do this all the time for conventions, for meetings. People use regular hotel rooms for all sorts of little breakout meetings and stuff when they're taking over hotels for conventions, because you run out of convention space. So, they'll drop a round in there and 10 people can meet in there. So for Counter-Strike, you take the beds out, you take all the stuff out, you put 5 guys in a row, you wire in better internet. All hotels have better internet. You have to pay for it. We're not talking about paying for better wireless. We're talking about you deal with the hotel's IT department. They drop you better drops in the rooms, right? And they feed you better internet so you can practice. Teams and players love this idea. Love, 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 love it. And it's cheaper for you, right? If you do this kind of shit in a venue, you know, you've got a big venue for the event that starts Friday, Saturday, but you need to start practicing Wednesday, Thursday. You have to figure out an area. You have to wire it all in. And again, you're hoping it's competitively clean in the sense of, again, they're far enough apart or they're separate rooms or whatever. The problem is you have to then have security keep an eye on all those rooms, right? Because security in a venue, you have to hire someone. Check badges, keep an eye on shit, right? The idea of the hotel room scenario is Astralis checks in, their player manager for the event meets them. Hey, Astralis, here's your room keys, and here's your practice room keys. No security needed. All hotels have a key code system now, right? Shit, even we got a key code system here at Sneaky Big, right? So maids, when they go into your room, security can see exactly who goes in and out of that room any given time. Maids, engineering, players, right? So a maid who works full-time for a hotel is absolutely less likely to steal something out of your practice room than the yellow-jacketed temporary security that you've hired at your venue, because they don't give a fuck, right? They are day laborers. They are hired to guard this stage and then this door, and then next week they're somewhere else. Those are the guys that are keeping an eye on what's in the room and figuring out when to fucking steal it half the time, right? So a hotel employee is far less likely to risk losing their job, right, because of the key card system. And a team can practice as much as they want or as little as they want, right? Don't need an admin in the room. You don't need any more TO assistants. Once the TO has set up the room, checked everything, you hand the keys out. It's between the team and the player management to use the room. Team wakes up jet lagged at 2 in the morning. Guess what? They could go down and practice. They can talk scrim. They can look at VODs. You ask, because we had a long conversation with players, like, what do you want? What is A, B, and C? Unanimously, Counter-Strike Pros prefer the hotel system. And not all hotels are right next to the venue you play at, right? So you've got a player who can get up, grab something to eat, walk down the hallway or walk down the elevator and practice, right? Instead of have to go to the lobby, figure out if there's a shuttle running, or get an Uber, get all the players in the Uber or in the shuttle. Oh, the shuttle just left. We'll be back in 30 minutes. Fuck. Go to the venue. Get into the venue. Get into security. That's just a fucking nightmare. You've lost like 2 hours of your day back and forth, right? Just to get in and out of your practice room. Again, not all hotels are right next to the venues, right? So this eliminates all that, right? And my conversation with Hastra was like, I'm not trying to be a dick here, bro. I'm just trying to tell you this is a better way. This will work for you. Because they're not even bringing 16 teams to these events, right? So, and we do that with 16-team events sometimes. So, like, it's cheaper. It's better for your players. It's better for your team owners, right? And teams use it to make content and wacky shit while they're on the road as well. You know, it's a whole bunch of bullshit you no longer have to worry about at the fucking venue. Counter-Strike guys are even like, if you give us hotel practice rooms, we don't even need a warm-up area at the venue. We don't need 2 setups, right? We don't need a hotel practice room, then another area to warm up before our match. Like, they're okay with, they'll warm up and practice and get all their last-minute shit done in the hotel that morning. Go when they set up for the event, when they're plugging shit in on stage is when they do their warm-ups, right? So, again, and Hastro, you know, we had some miscommunication. Hastro then reached out and said, hey, man, I apologize. I wasn't trying to be snarky because I thought he was being kind of defensive. And I was like, bro, I'm just trying to fucking help. I'm not trying to be an asshole saying Counter-Strike's great, but this fucking works. It'll work for every game, right? And then all this bullshit every week about we didn't get enough practice time, the home team's got an advantage, just fucking goes away. It's fucking gone. You don't even need to talk about it. He then said, you know, I've sent an email off to league headquarters about this idea. Maybe this does make sense. And it's something you have to be proactive about. It has to be part of the hotel selection, or at least the conversation when you're signing contracts, you know, that we also need 8 rooms. This is what you need to do to them. And it's all part of the planning process of the event, right? And as long as you start early enough with that process, when you're looking for hotels, it's a no-brainer with getting it done, right? So I know a little longer rant than I probably wanted to do on the topic of practicing, but it's really goddamn important for these players and teams to have a good place to practice, right? Especially Overwatch League, when they start adding these bans every week, those teams are going to need every second of every day when they're on site somewhere to figure their shit out, right? So then you don't limit them to a 4-hour window in your venue. Just, here's your keys. Practice whenever the fuck you want. If something goes wrong with the PCs or the internet, here's my number. Let me know. I'm the TO, right? And you're done with it. So hopefully we see more of that. Because again, Counter-Strike, it's the bee's knees, man. Players love it. Team owners love it. And the TOs love it because, again, yes, they have to set up the hotel rooms, but they have to set that shit up anyway. So if they can set it up in a secure, safer place and it makes a happier player and team owner, and it's less they have to worry about at the venue, they like it too. And it'll be cheaper in the long run. So anyway, that led to then a whole lot of production issues that Overwatch had as well, right? Again, opening week, 2 venue productions going on, and production in LA running the Watchpoint analyst desk. And again, lots of hiccups. Here's a little B-roll of the event. I don't know what I was expecting from opening week, season 3. I was expecting more. I was expecting better, right? We didn't get more or better. Yes, we had well-attended homestands. We should have well-attended homestands, right? These are LAN events, big events in these cities that haven't done Overwatch or rarely done Overwatch. So I'm not surprised they're well-attended. We didn't see a whole lot of sold-out tweets, which is nice to hear because generally they give a shitload of tickets away, and when you say shit's sold out, that leads people to believe that people bought all those tickets, and that is very much often not the case in esports. They're given away. But they were well attended. But production-wise, you had a tale of 2 homestands, right? And just weird shit jumped out to me. So first and foremost, you've got they did it New York and then Dallas, right? And it was great for a home viewer, right? Because you start the day in New York, you see 2 matches, and then you end the day in Dallas with 2 matches with a nice analyst desk in LA kind of bookending everything for you and kind of being your main storytellers, right? Again, just a shitload of production issues that should not happen. Yes, I know it's their first time, but there's millions and millions of dollars involved in this, right? This is not Jason and I rolling in a TriCaster. How do we stream? There's too much money involved in this project for these kind of things to happen day one or not, right? So one of the big issues they had was this whole Cheez-It thing, which turned into a meme, right? Bless Zoe and the desk for what they had to deal with. But this Cheez-It thing just kept showing up as a problem everywhere, right? We're not going to show it, but there was a bunch of desk segments with the LA team that Cheez-Its just kept stepping all over. And again, it leads me to believe that who's ever running some of this content is not paying attention to live streams. Their timing was wrong. It was just really, really screwed up. Zoe being a champ, though, she muddled through it. They also had a bunch of green screen errors behind them. They're at a green screen studio in LA that kept flickering and doing weird shit. Again, like live television is hard. That's what this is, even though it's on the internet. This is live broadcast TV quality shit. It ain't easy, right? What it seems like to me is that they just probably got too few people doing too many jobs, right? As they ramp up into the season. I bet a lot of people are wearing hats they hadn't worn before, let alone you have to deal with remote productions talking to each other, which can be an issue. But this Cheez-It thing, just insane. Let's go ahead and show you what it was like watching one of these matches.
Blizzard's still available for New York. Bubble's coming up with his as well.
For London is backing up.
The bank of London ready to go. 5 ultimates, and they get a pretty nice isolation on that wall.
So the screen up for timer is ours, right? This happened during a goddamn game. You can still hear the casters, right, underneath me? Still going, still crunch time. This is a fuck up, right? This is just a fuck up. We're still going. Guess how many seconds we went for on this particular episode? Crunch time.
Hey everybody, I'm blizzarding. Might as well just do that. Can we change that?
Casters are yelling and screaming. We're missing the greatest ultimates. Hey, it's back. Right? That kind of shit. Like, it's one thing if it happens, like guy hits the wrong button, crunch time comes up. The fact it sat there for as long as it sat there blows my goddamn mind, right? Like somebody has to be seeing that going, get that off, get that off, get that off. You know, and even like, and they turned it into a meme, you know, but even Cheez-Its is probably going, okay, this is not funny. Like, this is not funny. And again, a lot of stuff happened on the Cheez-It stuff at the LA desk. And again, it was just very, very kind of painful to watch. This is not the level of production that should come from a project that is this invested in. Simple as that, right? And you know, I get a lot of hate from the Overwatch fans thinking I'm a hater. I'm not a hater. Like, I've had the same stance about this league since before it even launched its first show. Really expensive, incredibly risky experiment. Not only the localization model, I think, could be great. Nothing wrong with that. Never bitched about the localization model. You know, it's traditional sports standard. But a $30 million buy-in to start, saw the pitch decks that explained how this was going to be like the NFL, all these things. Guys like me get really worried about projects like this failing, because when they fail, they send ripples to everyone who's currently invested and everyone who's thinking about it. And not the Intels of the world, not the people that get that Counter-Strike is different than Dota, is different than Overwatch, is different than League of Legends. I'm talking about the mainstream people that are all being circled right now that they should invest in esports. Esports is the future. Esports, Ninja, esports. Okay, those aren't even the same anymore. Ninja is not an esports guy. He does compete a little bit. But this buzzword of esports is everywhere now, right? And this league has been pushed by every PR company everywhere, by the Goldman Sachses of the world, by all the investment companies, right? Sports owners buying in, VC buying in. If this thing crumbles and they pull the plug out in a couple years and all these guys get burned, there will be a chunk of investors that think that esports was bad. Not that Overwatch was the wrong game or Call of Duty was the wrong franchise to buy into, but that esports is a bad investment. It's absolutely not the fucking case, right? We've got a lot of work to do to figure out how to get all our ROI out of these fans, but that's what I get scared about, is we all get lumped into the same goddamn thing, right? And again, those of us in the know absolutely understand the differences, right? The endemic sponsors, Monster Energy knows the differences, right? But the big money that's coming in the millions and millions and millions, just think esports is like the new pet rock thing, right? Gotta get on board with this esport thing, right? Remember how crazy Fortnite was last year? How much are you hearing about Fortnite now, right? It's very fucking peaks and valleys, but like a lot of our public mainstream stuff comes from these type of leagues pushing stuff. So I get really scared, right? I get very nervous. We've seen bubbles pop before. We've seen mainstream things crumble before our eyes, and it does scare people away. So I'm not a hater. I don't dislike the game. I don't dislike Activision Blizzard. But these two experiments are exactly that. They're experiments. And when experiments go wrong, shit goes fucking wrong, right? So I get really nervous, right? Now, again, I'm a Counter-Strike guy. The opposite. Great year, biggest player numbers ever this last weekend, right? But I still care about the ecosystem around us. So again, if you are an Overwatch fan, like, please understand, I'm not a hater. You might have haters out there that want to shit on everything about it. I'm not looking to poke holes, right? Jason's a hater, but Jason's also, you know, an ex-wife of the company. So he's got a little different inside track to the reality of working for Activision Blizzard and the challenges they all had. Yeah, I don't, you know, and I defended myself a little bit on Reddit, on their subreddit last week, going, look, man, calling me a hater is just is lying about me. This is my concerns. I've always had this same take on it. And again, I'm not seeing things get better. So I'm not all of a sudden happy like Overwatch is going to save the world. So yeah, lots of production issues. And then one of the big ones, obviously, big move to YouTube, right? Big move to YouTube. We talked about it last week. Not only have they moved Activision Blizzard's a bunch of esports properties to YouTube, they're moving game servers to the Google Cloud system instead of AWS, like a big agreement between Activision Blizzard and Google YouTube, right? And I even said last week, I think overall, this will be okay for Call of Duty because a lot of Call of Duty fans live and breathe YouTube content already. Some of their favorite teams are prolific on YouTube and continue to do that. So I think that's less of a shock to the Call of Duty system. But watching the streams this week on Overwatch, like the quality, like they were using the wrong encode. Like in some regards, YouTube is supposed to look better than Twitch. Higher bitrate, better encode system in place. You have the DVR where you can rewind. And day one, they were using a shittier encoder. They used the AV1, which is AVC1, which was the same encoder that Twitch uses. Then they started using VP9 on a couple. They had different embeds in different places for the stream. MLG had a stream. YouTube had streams. The home player that was embedded on the Overwatch channel or website was using a different encode. So depending on where you watched, it looked great or it looked like shit, right? Well, it should never look like shit, period. Never look like shit. Too much money in this thing for this to look like shit, right? And then day one, they did this weird handover, right? Where it wasn't one stream all day. It was one stream in the morning for New York, and then a different stream fired up in the afternoon, I should say afternoon, evening, if you will, in Dallas, right? Now, if I put my producer hat on, and I'm the guy in charge of this, I say, okay, if we have to do 2 streams, we have to cut and start, then here's what we do. We go to our amazing desk in LA, and we explain, hey, folks, we've just wrapped up New York. Great set of matches. We're not done, though. We're just halfway through the day. But here's what we have to do on the YouTube system. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to start a timer, and then we're going to come back on a different channel. Here's the link to that. We'll put the link in chat. Be right back, right? And then she says goodbye to the desk. They go to a plate that has a nice timer. Starting stream 2, whatever you want to put on there, be right back. Here's how you find the next stream. You let that run for a while so everyone watching knows you're about to shift them, because there was no shifting them. They had to shift themselves, right? And then you kill that stream. You fire the next one up. You let the timer go for a while. Let people catch up. You keep tweeting about it. You keep banging it in your chats and move people over. Did they do any of that, Scott? Did they do any of that, Scott?
No.
No. None of that. So what happened is they went from a stream that had approximately 90,000 people fucking watching, killed it, fired up the other one, 12,000 people watching, never got over 60 that night for the second half. Never got over 60, right? They lost 30,000 people that never fucking came back. Now, would some of those people left after the first homestand because they were more interested in the other teams? Sure. But you literally... You never try to kill a stream with 90,000 fucking people on it. That's a bad idea. And if you're going to have to do it, you figure out how you educate, and you do housekeeping announcements, and you make sure everyone's aware of it, and you give plenty of time for them to move over. Fucking, I don't get that one. I don't get that one, right? Now, day 2, not a problem. They magically didn't have to cancel. They kept one stream all day. So whatever they had to do, they didn't have to do after all, right? And I know the VOD system on YouTube is different, and I think part of it was they wanted to chop the homestands so that, New York's VOD was New York's VOD and Dallas's VOD is Dallas's VOD. They're all the same company. They're all the same views. They're all the same fan base. You lost 30,000 fucking people that never came back. That should be the most important. Continuity of your goddamn broadcast, right? It'd be like if you're watching, I don't know, Turner's Desk where they do NBA, right? And they talk about different games. All right, you're now going to have to change to channel 22 to watch the next match we do. But then they never told anybody, right? It's just, this kind of shit is when I go, who's working there? Who runs this fucking thing? It shouldn't be amateur hour at the Apollo when there's this much money involved. So it just, hopefully, again, next homestands will be better, I'm sure. They go into, I think Atlanta is next. Where do they go next? They go to Philly. Philly and then DC. And then these next couple ones are one homestand only weekends. So one production to worry about plus LA should make it easier for them. They were going to be dual homestands, but again, remember, in China, they've postponed their homestands due to the coronavirus. So I imagine these were going to be a Chinese homestand. I don't have the schedule anymore, but I think that they weren't meant to be standalone homestands, but I think now they are. So maybe they can use this to kind of dial their shit in, because again, it shouldn't be like this, right? So yeah, a lot of issues. And then little production things. Puckett hosting New York. Big, bold Puckett doing his stage thing. Who was the stage host in Dallas? The casters were announcing the on-air, the play-by-play color guys were doing the team announcements. I think they had a guy doing interviews once in a while. But again, where is the symmetry in this? If you're going to let each homestand do their own thing, that's cool. But you're going to find homestands that decide to spend more money or have a relationship with a guy like Puckett. Keep in mind, New York, ex-MLG guys own the spot. Puckett, Esports Engine involved in New York as well. So they grab Puckett, right? So where's the continuity? I don't
Got a question for you, Scott.
Yeah, brother.
Do you think the world of savings should have been the goal for the opening weekend? Because that was some dumbed-down production all the way across the board.
Yeah, again, Jason, we've talked about this. This is when you overspend, you spend out of the park, your experiment is now having real life breathed into it. You're no longer in a contained little place in LA. Everybody's back home. Now is when we talked about this during the talent stuff. Obviously, some of these guys decide not to work there anymore because of the pay rate. So this is not when you cut corners. This is when you overspend. Or at least spend in the right places and not overspend in the wrong places, right? I would love to see these budgets. I would love to see the production budgets. But yeah, again, to me, it just kind of it was there. It was Overwatch. And it didn't wow me. Call of Duty's done a better job with the rebrand, with the league firing up, than Overwatch has done now moving home, right? It shouldn't be like that. It really shouldn't. So that's, I think, it for the production issues. And then, of course, it wouldn't be Overwatch if we didn't talk about talent issues. Talent issues raise their head again. And I think it's more of one of those foot and mouth things than it was an intentional, malicious slight. Again, Mr. Spector got interviewed by Jacob Wolf from ESPN. And Jacob asked him about the talent issues, right? Obviously, there was a lot of drama in the offseason of signing talent, and who was coming and who wasn't coming. And obviously, the talent that has decided not to return or were not asked back have been very vocal about their reasons for either not wanting to do it again or what happened to them. And Jacob asked a question. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. And
So the Overwatch League drew a lot of criticism this offseason for the amount of talent that we're leaving it, or not renewing with it in some instances. Personally, and I've talked about this on our shows and various different things. I think that the framing of the situation sort of was more or less that it was bad timing, the fact that everyone was leaving, less that it is much as big of a deal as it was made to be. But I want sort of your thoughts. You're bringing in a lot more endemically focused Overwatch casters, people like ZP and others who I think really deserve their mark. But from your perspective, I mean, what is your thoughts on sort of everything that happened with the talent and how things maybe could have been handled a little differently?
Yeah. All right. I got to say stop right now. This is the worst fucking question in the world. This is even worse than a Sir Scoots rambling question to somebody. 40 fucking seconds to ask a question. You can't, and not only that, you gave him an out. Well, I don't think you killed your wife, but if you did kill your wife, what happens? Or these are the questions that I would ask Angel. I would ask Angel questions of, hey, I know we're hearing rumors about you not paying teams, but did you really not pay teams? Why would you say a question like that? Because Angel would kick you out of the fucking event and you could never go again. That's what kind of question he just asked there. He works for fucking ESPN. It's bullshit.
Yeah, that's one of the first things that stuck out to me. Thank you, Jason.
I think part of it was you get a series of announcements in December where we're ramping up the season now and wanted to be able to talk about what our talent lineup looked like, but didn't have an opportunity to do that until a little bit after some of those announcements about departures came out. So I think from what our talent lineup looks like this year, we couldn't be happier. Jaws debuted here yesterday in front of the crowd, paired up with Hex. They seem to be doing great together. I thought their first cast was amazing. ZP and Jake did a great job yesterday in Dallas, as did Sideshow and Bren. So we feel really good about the lineup we've put together. I think you're right that if you look at who's casting now, particularly pulling up folks like ZP who have been doing this for years in Overwatch specifically, bringing Jake and Custa onto the show, bringing Reinforce back onto the show. These are all people who live and breathe Overwatch. We have a complicated game, right? It's something I know you guys talk about a lot, and the more that we can pull former professionals, people who live and breathe this game, I think the better we're going to do in terms of what our show looks like and the ability to explain something that's really complicated to our fans.
Yeah. So first off, I got to call out Dust. Not in a bad way, Dust. By the way, Dust built this desk. Isn't this not amazing? This is some of his best work. If you need a desk for anything, Dust Moret is your man. So Dust said, this is kind of funny. Well, yeah, normally, Dust also said, normally Jacob's a solid reporter, but he led on this one. Oh, he keeps scrolling up. He is leading the guy and rubbing his balls as he asked it. That's about it, right? And I don't think that Mr. Spector meant to be malicious or meant to take a dig at Monty and the old crew, but it still comes off that way, right? I don't think he sat there and went, I'm going to put a dig in about people living and breathing this game, and they didn't. But that's obviously how everyone took it, right? Because Twitter definitely blew up very quickly on this one, with some of the ex-talent taking offense to what are you talking about? You know, Malik's just like, fuck, are we still talking about this shit? Malik's moved on, man, you know? But then you've also got, Semler came in, and this is an interesting one, right? There's a lot of nuance to this tweet. People who live and breathe this game equals people who specialize in our game that we can lowball thanks to our monopolistic hold on the scene and or their dependence on us for visas. That last sentence, part of that sentence, should not be taken lightly, right? Visas. A lot of these guys needed visas to stay and live in America. And here's one from Doa, who's basically saying, hey, I fucking lived and breathed it too, man. So, again, kind of a veiled insult. I don't think that Spector meant it, probably the way he did it. But, again, if you're going to be in front of a camera and you're going to answer questions for people like ESPN's or anyone else's, you got to be careful what you say and how you say it, right? And obviously Monty jumped on it as well. And again, like a lot of validity here for them to be a little upset because it does kind of read, again, although not intentionally, that the people that are no longer there didn't live and breathe it. Monty moved from the place he loved, Korea, to do this, right? Monty got hired to be a consultant by Nate to help build this whole goddamn thing. He didn't get hired just to be an on-air talent. So I'm pretty sure Monty lived and fucking breathed your game, right? So maybe they took it a little too, defensively, maybe they didn't. Regardless of all that, he decided whether he should or shouldn't, or whether someone from Blizzard said, hey man, you need to apologize, but he did come out and clarify his statement and basically kind of apologize, saying, hey man, we're proud of the team we had before. It's not like that. We're just really excited about the crew we have now, right? We wouldn't be where we were without you guys, blah, blah, blah. He apologized in the earlier part of the article. He does apologize for what he said officially. This part of the quote doesn't necessarily have the apology, but he did apologize that, he was sorry it was taken the wrong way. He didn't mean it that way. But again, like you were lowballing and last minute negotiating till the very end. We didn't hear about Uber and Mr. X till last week. That negotiation's been going on for months. You couldn't announce anything in December because you had nothing to announce because you hadn't signed anybody worthy of announcing yet, right? So that's That's your own issue. That's not on Monty. That's not on Doa. That's not on anybody else. So again, what's an Overwatch conversation without a little ex-talent drama, right? This building's full of ex-wives of Activision Blizzard and Blast, for that matter.
Hey, speaking of which,
yeah,
I'm gonna go for another bullshit part of this statement. How can you act like ZP deserved to be there, but you didn't let him there for 3 fucking seasons? That Zoe deserves to be there, but we kicked her off the desk in season 1. That who else did? Oh, fucking Reinforce. So Reinforce, they're the same thing. They kicked him off, and he got lowballed to stay in production. Fuck that.
Yeah, because
fucking
he lives and breathes that game so much that he took a shit job for him in his mind, shit pay to stay involved, right? And now you put him back on the desk and you've done some glorious thing. No, you're just fixing what you already fucked up once, right? And again, no offense to those that are doing it now, or whatever job they're doing. But again, like the ZP one is like, yeah, you all intentionally didn't hire him. Easy on your PR speak. Anyway, so that's Overwatch for the week. They said, they head to Philly next. And I think I saw a tweet from today from Golden Boy. I think Golden Boy is hosting that homestand, so that'll be cool. Now, let's get into a general, we're going to keep it on Overwatch a little bit, but I want to talk about the viewership numbers over the weekend, right? Because they tell a tale, right? And I don't necessarily care what metric we decide to use. Is it AMA, the minute audience one? We went with what ES Charts is going with, which, again, we always look at peak viewership tells a story, right? It is not perfect. Embeds can do all sorts of weird shit, all sorts of things. Marketing and sponsorships want different numbers for their metrics back. That's fine. But I think it's really an easy number to look at just to see how things stack up. Average peak is, an average. And opening peak viewership is the most people that were ever watching at one given time. So let's start with Overwatch, because we've been talking about Overwatch. This is the decline of your franchise league. You can call it whatever the fuck you want. You can make whatever goddamn excuse you want on competitive Overwatch. Oh, it's on YouTube. Oh, there's no drops. Oh, Overwatch isn't advertising. Oh, it wasn't embedded in their player. Those are all excuses for shitty fucking declining numbers. But you know what? Your game ain't doing that great either. Your game numbers are declining, right? Blizzard doesn't tell you. I wish more devs were like Valve and Steam. I can tell you exactly how many people played Counter-Strike last weekend. The public can see these numbers. Activision Blizzard does not release their numbers. They release boxes sold. Terrible fucking number, especially in our day and age, right? Where games are free or they're dirt cheap. So again, that first graph showed you the decline in opening day viewership from season 1 to season 2 to season 3. Dramatically different. Continuing to slide. Now, sure, you can chick a little bit off to YouTube. They decided to move to YouTube. These are excuses that a corporation decided to embrace. We're moving to YouTube. We don't have a token system. We can't tease you with AFK drops. I think that whole, using that as an excuse. So wait, you're not actually baiting your viewership who doesn't actually care about your sport, and you're going to use that as a fucking excuse? Counter-Strike doesn't bait shit. We haven't baited for years, right? So now onto the bigger number. Let's put it in contextual comparison, right? So again, declining numbers for Overwatch when you're now moving into your home cities. Ain't good, boys. Ain't good. Now let's look at this big number. So I had them make this chart as well because it was a very busy weekend, by the way. Bravo to Juked. If you don't know what juked.gg is, juked.gg. It is your TV guide, those of you that are old enough to know what a TV guide is, for esports. And they are kicking ass. They now have YouTube integration. So not just Twitch integration. So if an event lives on YouTube, it's in the system just as if it was on Twitch. Great stuff. Chanman and Fish Sticks are kicking ass. We'll talk about these numbers in a minute. Another shout out to Juked. They just announced pre-seed $800,000 round of investment. The Morheims have invested. Mike and Amy Morheim. Co Carnage has invested. That is awesome. shout out to fucking Co. Co's not an esports guy. Co doesn't give a shit about esports, but he sees what this thing can be. So Ben, bravo to you and Chris. Great to hear you guys got some more funding. I know you were looking for it, so that's great to help keep building this bad boy up. But awesome, good shit. Again, if you don't know what juke.gg is, type it in right now. Fucking put it in your favorites. I was looking at it this weekend. It's just fucking great. You know, and now that, again, the YouTube integration is there, because we're starting to see a little bit more of these other platforms pick up steam, and it's not everything lives on Twitch anymore. It's just awesome, Ben. Awesome shit. But now let's get back to the numbers. So again, very, very busy weekend. League of Legends, no surprise, thrashing. LCS started back up. Again, #1 video game in the world, right? These things cannot be put to the side. The bigger your player base is, the more healthy your player base is, the more it helps your esports base, viewership-wise and future player-wise. They go hand in fucking hand. They do. They just fucking do, right? So it's no surprise that League continues to kick everyone's ass. Their production level is through the roof, whether it's LEC or LCS. Great production value, great shoulder content. Machine was doing some stuff at LEC this weekend. Great to see him doing some fun bits. But this one, the one right next to it, let's talk about this motherfucking bad boy. Counter-Strike, second biggest of the weekend, right? And this was a 4-team studio event, Blast, right? Those are Blast numbers, right? Now again, big teams, Na'Vi, Astralis, Complexity, Vitality, but 390 we peaked at, right? At one point, Windstrike TV was a sanctions channel, not run by Blast themselves, but it was a sanctioned channel, and it was the CIS stream, right? Na'Vi there, big numbers. Oftentimes, they had more viewership than the main Blast channel did, right? Because, again, Na'Vi. When you, Gauls, Portuguese guy, right? He sat at 20 grand all weekend. If MIBR is in that tournament, his numbers go up in a huge way, right? People love listening to shit in their own language, right? Back to Overwatch. They canceled their Russian streamers, and a couple other streamers got the boot last week that were doing side streams for Overwatch. Gave them the boot last week. That doesn't help you. So this 390 number was those two big streams, Windstrike TV, Blast Main. They were hitting 100 grand almost on a regular, 80 to 100 grand on either of those. Then you got Gauls. Then even on YouTube, we had 40 to 60,000 people watching on Blast's YouTube channel, right? So again, I'm an asshole, right? So I'm looking at it going, wait, Windstrike has more people watching their version of Blast than are watching both franchise pro leagues combined. One channel doing better at times than Call of Duty and Overwatch. That's not a good look for your multi-million-dollar buy-in franchise league. It's just not, right? Then you've also got, so again, great stuff for Counter-Strike. And we're going to talk more about Counter-Strike specifically in Blast and all that when we get to the Counter-Strike section after the break. But then you've got, again, Rocket League and Rainbow Six continually building good production value, good entertainment value, and a good fan base, right? Just still doing quite well. And again, LCS is a franchise league. You had to buy a team. So it's not like all the franchise leagues sucked and the 4 independents did good. Rainbow Six has a pro league. Rocket League has a pro league. Those are not franchise buy-ins. Obviously, LCS and LEC are, but they're not regional. They're all done out of a studio. Same format you've seen for years out of these things. So again, a growing product still in that sense, right? And then again, you've got, there you go, there's Overwatch and there's Call of Duty. Again, you can lie to yourself all you want about the excuses. And this is great, it's fine, it's on YouTube. The discoverability of YouTube will be great for us. When will it be great for you? ESL told us that the discoverability and the millions of people that are on the Facebook platform would be good for us and good for them. Narrator, it was not, right? So and discoverability was fine. I talked about it last week. Discoverability of YouTube, I was worried about it. It's hard to find live streams. I checked every day, went to the main page of YouTube, refresh. right there in the fucking rotator. Call of Duty Live, Overwatch Live. So I had no problem finding the streams whatsoever. That was not a problem for me. Discoverability, not an issue. Right on the goddamn front page, right? So again, YouTube may have millions of active users every day consuming all sorts of content, but the people watching the makeup videos don't give a fuck. The people watching Minecraft don't give a fuck, right? So I just don't buy that magically YouTube is going to become something that Twitch wasn't. Bigger than Twitch. Again, declining on Twitch, still declining, folks. All we know about game numbers is that Activision Blizzard said in their last earnings call that their player counts were down 13 to 18%. Won't say what game, won't say anything other than they're down. And they're projecting a down quarter coming up as well. But I would love to know, I would love to see active concurrent players of Overwatch, because it's going down. It's fucking going down. If it was going up and the game was getting more popular, that would only help their esports side, right? I just don't know how much it's going down, right? I know that everyone that I know that used to play it no longer plays it. They've moved on to other games, right? Challenge of any esport is keeping your player base excited, right? So, yeah, viewership stuff. Again, great weekend for Counter-Strike. Again, really impressed with Blast. We'll get into Blast itself after the break. But again, just those are the troubling signs I see when I look at these leagues. And I'm less worried about Call of Duty because Call of Duty never had awesome viewership numbers. That was the big debate when Call of Duty got franchised. In the first place, people were like, not that many people watch MLG. You know, they're hitting 80, 50, 100 grand. And if Optic plays, that helps. So we don't see the same decline. It would be interesting to look at MLG's numbers when it was just a circuit last year and see if that 100 and some odd concurrence is kind of normal or if it actually went up for them. But anyway, we're going to take a quick break as we always do about halfway through the show. Well, an hour into the show today. When we come back, questions and answers will be at the end of the show. We're talking about teabagging, and we're definitely jumping into Counter-Strike news. We'll be right back. right, welcome back to the second half of the breakdown. That was a long first half. Production yelling at me. I'll talk as long as I goddamn want, Baker. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Let's get right into it.
Appointment today, just let you know.
Oh, Jason. I know. Yeah, he does that. We'll make sure you get there. All right, let's get into Counter-Strike news. The rest of the show is basically Counter-Strike news, catch up on all that stuff, and then the infamous teabag conversation. So, again, let's just very quickly talk about, we did it again, chat. Y'all did it again. 901, 305. Couldn't read that for a second. Over 900,000 people playing this last weekend, a new global offensive record. We've had a few shows where we beat some earlier records. This is now the new top player count of all time for this game. I'm pausing to stress how fucking important that is. This game is growing. This game is doing well by a player base, right? Valve dropped an operation that got people excited. They keep kind of messing with their anti-cheat that I think makes people excited that maybe more of the botters will go away. And again, it just, you need this number feeds all other numbers, right? When it comes to the esports ecosystem. There has not been an incredibly popular esport game that has been a very unpopular video game. They have to be hand in hand, right? So this is great news for us, right? We're going into a crazy new year, all sorts of stuff happening in our world. So it's just great to see that, and I hope every fucking week, I'm like, we did it again. We did it again. We're now at 1 million. Like, this is awesome. Because again, those of you that were here for the launch of Global Offensive, this game sucked. The game was not our game. It was bad. The first version was bad. We were all like, well, yep, Counter-Strike's still over. We ain't ever coming back to 1.6 days. Boom, baby. So as much shit as you want to give Valve, whatever they are doing, it's working, you know, because we also don't have like the betting and the skin issues we had before that even we were saying that inflates viewership. We're not doing drops anymore. That inflates viewership. So like awesome stuff, man. But it was Garbo at release, man. It was we were all like, well, oh well, so much for Counter-Strike. But again, so 900,000 people playing, that's awesome shit. Now let's get into the news of the week. First big news, we announced, it was breaking news last week during the show. We got a name. B-Site is no longer to be known as B-Site. It is Flashpoint. Woohoo! Flash! Probably too old for any of you to remember that. So that is awesome. We now have a name. Flashpoint. Interesting name. Don't know why they came up with that. There's Flashpoint movies and Flashpoint TV series and all sorts of stuff, but Flashpoint it is. Better than B-Site, right? So we're starting to get information. We're starting to get real information now. There's been a lot of leaks, and Thorin talking a little bit, and Monty talking a little bit, and Dan Fiden, president of Cloud9 talking a little bit, and now we're, like, they fire up in March, so now we're starting to see some real deal news from them. And this week is no exception. Not only did we get the name, we got a hype video, and we also got a format video. So we're going to walk you kind of through all that. And again, for those that don't understand what Flashpoint is, this is a series of team owners deciding to start their own tournament. Right? They don't call it a league. They've said in their video it's not a league. It's more of a tournament system. You know, tournaments that lead to a big tournament. Not kind of your traditional league. That's why it's not called Flashpoint League, probably. And it's not a new concept. You know, years ago, a bunch of Counter-Strike team owners got together that were part of the PEA, Professional Esports Association, and they tried to do this once already. And the idea is, let's cut out the middleman, TO. Let's be the TO. We're really good at selling sponsorships. We're really good at what we do around our brands. What if we, as team owners, lean into a tournament series instead of just going to them? What if we did one, right? Yes, we have to be the tournament organizer. We have to do all the admin and we have to do all that stuff. But what if it was just ours, right? And again, in a world where everything is controlled by those that own the IP, the publisher, the developer, trying to get as much security in your world, the better. right? So it makes perfect sense why they tried, how they went about PA was a clusterfuck, and they learned their lesson. But the thought of them wanting to do it makes perfect sense, right? In a world where you can be your own ESL or your own DreamHack or your own E-League, why not, right? Why not give it a shot? So that's what Flashpoint is. It's kind of PA 2.0. They approach the players differently. You know, they're in talks right now with the PA of signing their own agreement with the Player Association for quality of life issues, for rev share, all that kind of stuff, just like was already signed with ESL, just like will probably be signed with Blast as well. Those are all in motion. So it's like they took the idea, but then they went, let's forget everything we tried to do and let's do this with some other people, right? And I think one of the coolest things, you know, ECS is going away. We know this now. It's officially been announced. ECS is the league that was run by Faceit. And again, the ECS league itself was different, right? ECS was a business that was owned by the teams that participated each season and by Faceit. They together owned ECS. Rev share, all that kind of shit. I think a chunk of the burden was always on Faceit in the sense of costs, but it was kind of a partnership, right? It was kind of maybe phase one of this idea. So now Faceit is not a big owner in Flashpoint. They are involved. I guess they have the way that they can earn an ownership stake, or they own a very small piece. But this is different, right? This is a $2 million per team buy-in, member teams and non-member teams playing in a tournament format. So very, very interesting. Let's go ahead and play some of their videos, though. We've got kind of a hype video, and then we've got a really nice one that Monty did about the actual format that I think kind of really explains how and why they want to be different. So we'll start with their hype video, which is very much a hype video. Let's go! Yay!
The notion that there are things that should change within the ecosystem was right. The calendar is too crowded.
The scene is sick, the scene is dying, and something must be done. The question just is, what is that thing that must be done?
When I look at Counter-Strike players, they spend all of their life jet-lagged and trying to recover.
Now Bentec needs that flash to come in. Oh, nice pop from Bentec. He'll eat the second one, but still get a kill. Still alive by the sandbags. He's got no help.
So, yeah, some good quotes in there. Dan Fiden's voice is in there. Thorne's voice is in there. And again, in their mind, they're addressing what they feel are some inherent problems with our current ecosystem, right? The idea of this league is a small set of teams. We'll show you in the format video, show up at a time. So your commitment to the league is not necessarily a deal breaker. You know, there's been a lot of talk about exclusivity and franchises. I think in Counter-Strike, we should not call them franchises. They don't call it a franchise system. They call it a member team system. ESL has a member team system, and Flashpoint has a member team system. If you're a member team, for Flashpoint, you buy in. You buy into the league, and then you get benefits for that. You get better rev share and all these kind of things that go with that. If you commit to ESL, you commit to X amount of things, you also get rev shares, right? You don't have to pay for ESLs, but you're buying into this business and helping fund the business of Flashpoint if you go that route. Now, how they're going to compete, though, because Valve, remember, this year came out and said, whatever the fuck you're all talking about doing, you can't do. You can't put in your contracts that if you play in my league, you can't play in their league. You can't limit days traveled. You can't do all this shit you're all trying to do. You can experiment all you want with formats. You can experiment with charging people to be in your leagues, but you can't lock this shit down the way you're legally trying to do it, right? So what they're doing now, so they said, okay, well, fine. So now what they're doing is these two leagues, EPL and Flashpoint, will have the same dates overlap so that you can't physically play in both. That's how they'll do exclusive to be in a league. You're either going to have to pick to play in EPL or you're going to pick to play in Flashpoint. Because they happen at the same time, you can't be in two places at once, so therefore that's how they're going to do their exclusive side. So be it. You know, when Valve speaks, you have to do what Valve wants, or you don't get a license, right? Valve's pretty cool with their licensing. They don't charge for it. They don't ask a lot of it, but you know, every so often they do put some rules down. So again, I think one of the coolest things about this, because you can look at it, that this is the team owners doing PA all over again, but this one has Monty and Thorin stamped all fucking over it. From format choices to Thorin is creative director of the league. They have talked a big game about it's their format. They threw away they initially were hired to consult, and Thorin has said in some interviews that he basically fucking said your idea is fucking terrible, right? I hate everything about your league, right? And he rebuilt it from the ground up. Here's Monty talking about what he envisioned this to be, right? And again, he takes some shots at Overwatch. He was an Overwatch guy. It was on Disney, and their thought process is that this is going to be really gritty. Counter-Strike's an adult game. It's mature rated. Granted, we can go round and round on the fact that we have terrorists and counter-terrorists in our game, and we have not changed it, and Valve has not changed it. It's an edgier, more adult game. It's not cartoony. It's never going to be on Disney. Like I'm still surprised that E-League even took a shot and put us on TBS because of the violence of the game and T and CT and all that. So they're looking to what UFC does. They're looking at what wrestling does for storylines. And again, like these guys they put their dick on the fucking table, both of them, right? Because they've said, we're going to do shit that no one has seen in Counter-Strike. We're going to blow your minds. We finally are unleashed to do what we've always wanted to do. I'm really intrigued by what they're going to do that is so dramatically different than what we've seen. And maybe it's a lot more major type content that we only see at majors. Big player bios, big background things like that. Probably a really good use of Skybox and tools like that to analytically break down our game. But I don't know how earth-shattering it's going to be. But again, they've slapped it down, both of them. Now, Monty also did a format video. Because again, their format is different. It's a combination of GSL meets a little bit of how Dota does some of their stuff. But again, this is their format. They have dictated to the bosses of Flashpoint what the format should be. Let's go ahead and we'll let you listen to this one because it's Monty talking and explaining the system, and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
We here at Flashpoint are excited to reveal the format for our inaugural season, which will be different than anything you've seen before in Counter-Strike. We wanted to create a format that will complement our overall focus on banter and showcasing our players' personalities while still providing intense competition. You might have heard us referred to as a league, but we are really running a tournament series culminating in a double elimination playoff bracket. This format is complex, but bear with us as we walk you through the details. We will have 12 teams playing in the inaugural season, with 10 teams locked in as founding partners and 2 teams entering through open qualifiers. These teams will initially be seeded 1 through 12 by a CSPPA-approved, transparent ranking system. The regular season will be split into 2 phases. Each phase consists of the 12 teams being split into 3 groups of 4 teams, which will each play a GSL-style double elimination group. Each match in the group will be a best of 3. Before each phase, we will have a group selection show where teams will pick their opponents. Throughout this show, team captains will have the opportunity to explain their decisions and banter with their opponents. For Phase 1, the top 3 seeds will be randomly assigned to either Group A, B, or C. Beginning with the team in Group A, the team captain will then choose another team for their group from any of the remaining unassigned teams. This process then repeats with the team assigned to Group B and then the team in Group C. To fill out the remainder of the groups, the most recently selected team will pick from the remaining pool of unassigned teams in A through C order until no teams remain. Once all groups are filled, each team selected last will be given the opportunity to propose a team swap since they did not get to pick an opponent, once again in A through C order. Swaps may either occur within a group to change a team's initial opponent, or to switch teams between groups. The teams that joined each group first will be given the opportunity to veto the swaps with a 2/3 consensus, but with some caveats. Please see the document linked in the description of this video for complete swap and veto rules. Phase 2 will be played in the same format as Phase 1, But this time, the 3 first-place teams from Phase 1 will be randomly assigned to Groups A, B, and C. The selection process otherwise remains identical to Phase 1. Teams will receive playoff points for their final standings in each phase, which are cumulative and determine which teams enter the playoffs. Teams receive 75 points for a first-place finish, 50 points for second, 30 points for third, and 15 points for fourth. At the conclusion of Phase 2, the 8 teams with the most playoff points will be seeded into a double elimination bracket, while the bottom 4 teams are eliminated. All matches in the playoffs will be best of 3. We know you probably have more questions about the format, so please see the link in the video description for more complete details, as well as a sample group selection show for clarity. Thanks for watching, and we hope you enjoy our new format.
Yeah, so that's a really good video, Monty. I think Monty's in chat. Thank you, Monty, for doing the video, and thanks for coming to check the show out. That explains it. Again, it's not super complicated. It's just a couple different types kind of jammed together. We've seen GSL before. We've seen a couple events where players did kind of control seeding a little bit, and that's a big part of this is the way they're kind of setting up. This is going to be about storylines. This is going to be about rivalries. This format really allows these teams and these players at these certain sections to have some really fun trash talk. Oh, I'm going to play that guy. Oh, no, you're not. I'm going to change it on you, and I'm going to pull this guy from a different group. That could be really fun banter, right? With the players and Monty and Thorin and the guys at the desk, depending on how they do it live. And again, very intriguing, all best of 3s, all good Counter-Strike in that sense. And here's, a couple more graphics that kind of explain the format. So it is kind of a series of mini tournaments that lead to the big tournament, right? Kind of like E-League kind of did. So they're going to little self-contained weekends, if you will, that lead to the bigger prize. Again, I'm really excited about it. Obviously during PEA, I was on the other side of the fence with these guys, but not because of the idea of them doing a league, but just how they went about it and how they kind of bamboozled their players into it. And the force of you got to play in ours, you can't play in theirs. Now players decide, teams decide which model works better for them, if they want to buy into Flashpoint, if they want to stick with EPL if they're in it. Neither side is perfect. I think Flashpoint's biggest challenge is this, right? And it might take them a couple seasons to get this list to be the bigger, better teams, right? This might take a little bit of time to convince players and team owners that aren't on board right now that, you know what, this might be a better use of your time over these breaks, this league time, and not EPL, right? Because again, these are not the biggest teams in Counter-Strike right now. A couple cool things, Dignitas is now the old NIP roster, so there's a whole lot of hype and excitement around the old boys getting back together. Will the Dig Magic exist like NIP Magic? A lot of guys also saying they're over the hill. This will be great for show and stuff, but they're not really going to have much substance. MIBR, no matter where they play, when they play, they bring a huge viewership. So even if their team is not firing on all cylinders, those fans show up. And then you've got some new teams that are coming in. Gen G is not known for Counter-Strike, right? Contact, that's the old crazy roster, and Mad Lions, right? So in some regards, this is awesome because we're bringing new team owners into our game, right? Now, just like in Overwatch, I wouldn't want any team owner to get burned to spend $2 million on this and it doesn't work out for them, right? Because that's bad for all of us, right? I like competition. So I don't want EPL to be the only long format thing we have going, right? So I liked that ECS existed, right? Because that keeps everyone honest. So I like that this is coming with a bigger, bolder plan than even ECS was, right? I think they got their work cut out for them to land some bigger teams just to help that first season kind of, so everyone thinks it's not tier 2, tier 3 Counter-Strike. But I think, again, when you get into the battle of these leagues, it might take Flashpoint a little bit of time, but I think their long-term goal would be just give us time, we'll show the world that this is where you should play, and that the teams that make this decision now to play in EPL will realize maybe they made the wrong decision, right? And their players would be better off, and our brand as a team would be better off in Flashpoint, right? So we'll see. Again, it's an experiment. It's a far cheaper experiment than, $30 million per team that we're seeing in some other leagues. But again, I'm really excited. I love Monty and I love Duncan. They know this. Like, I think in some regards, we're all very birds of a feather in how our attitude is online, how we act, how we're pretty much critical of stuff and not everything's rosy. That's kind of our persona. But they have thrown the gauntlet down to all of us, saying, we're going to show you motherfuckers shit you only wished you fucking saw before. So I'm really, really excited for that. You know, if they want to bring the whole operation to Scottsdale, Arizona, Monty, we could help you with that mission. You know, I'm just saying, we could help you if you want to get the hell out of LA. Maybe in a couple years. Maybe in a couple years we'll get you out of LA. So, and then on top of that, so this graphic speaks the opposite of the team graphic, right? This is the heavy hitters. And no offense to everybody who's not on this list, but this is an A team of fucking broadcasters, right? From Freya doing hosting for ECS and, you know, interview stuff. You know, she's coming to her own, but this is an all-star cast. Like, this is awesome. You could add a few more people. You could add a Sponge. You could definitely add more casters pairs, but this is a pretty fucking tier 1 set of talent to be representing you on camera for this first season, right? And if they hold true to what, you know, their whole mantra is that talent is helping drive production now. We've sat in green rooms for years and just did what we were told and had to suffer through shitty desk segments and throw away interviews and all this stuff. This is like literally Thorin going, I'm the captain now, and Monty going, I'm the captain now. I can't wait. I hope you motherfuckers nail it. I really fucking do, right? Because it's my favorite game. So if you give ESL a run for their money, like, that's just fucking music to my ears, right? If you make a great place for players to go play and they want to play in your system and team owners are happy, I'm happy, man. And again, they are, you know, Flashpoint is talking to the PA. We are in negotiations right now. There will be an agreement coming that is very similar to the ESL one. That was only historic because it was first. But again, these guys even mentioned in the video, they're working with the PA to come up with a ranking system that they use that helps define who gets fined, all those kind of good things, right? So again, from PA 2-3 years ago to this new version, how they're leaning into players and what players' thoughts are and what talent thoughts are, I'm really excited, Monty. Really, really excited for you guys. I wish you nothing but the best of luck. You got your work cut out for you. You know this. But I'm really excited to see what a spicy adult Counter-Strike league looks like, because we have room for it in our ecosystem. That's for damn sure. Not everyone needs to be buttoned up and looking at teleprompters in esports. So that's very, very cool stuff. Definitely looking forward to seeing what they're doing. They had some issues with their online qualifiers. They had to reset shit. Faceit did come out and give a press release as to why. You know, they have had some stumbling blocks along the way here, coming out the gate for their qualifiers. It is what it is, you know. But again, I wish you guys the best of luck. We'll definitely be talking about it a lot on the show. Let's move on. Another Counter-Strike news, Blast Week 2. Got to talk about Blast Week 2. Again, on the overall production front, continuing to nail it. You know, when you can move in and stay in one place for weeks at a time, your show gets really tight. It gets really good. It gets really solid. Less technical issues can go wrong. And again, so week 2 was great for them. Again, we talked about their viewership numbers. Awesome viewership numbers for them. And we had awesome Counter-Strike. Now, we're going to talk about complexity a little later, but in the Juggernaut maybe becoming a reality. But what we have to talk about first is Astralis not looking sharp this weekend. You know, everyone coming off of a break, off of the holidays. Not a lot of, you can't have jet lag as an excuse. You can't have, we've been on the road for 6 months as excuses. Like, if you didn't come into this event fired up and ready to rock and roll, that's on you. And they, for whatever reason, didn't look like the Australis we're used to, right? They just didn't look sharp. They looked frustrated in between rounds, you know. And Na'Vi, on the other hand, coming off of a second place at the Ice Challenge against Mouse Sports, they were looking good. And it's one thing, you know, often the tale of Na'Vi has been Simple has to play out of his mind, right? Simple has to play out of his mind. It's kind of like the Vitality thing now. ZywOo has to play out of his mind. Simple did not play out of his mind. Simple played very well, but Simple had teammates that stepped up, right? You have a Guardian no longer there and a Perfecto who is there, right? So in some regards, they made Simple's job easier, right? They were played well as a team versus Simple having to put him on his back, right? And it was great to see. Look how much fun they had in these highlight clips. They were laughing. They were trash talking. Another advantage of having one team here and one team here is they can stand up and see each other and yell at each other, right? This reminded me back to the old like CPL days, the old like Web 2 zone days where they were in LAN centers yelling at each other, saying more politically correct things than they did back then. But I like that they stand up and they can banter each other, man. That is good. If only they could teabag each other, right? That would be the next best thing. So again, great event by Blast, great desk, Semler, Sponge, Thorin locking it down. They'd bring players on. They brought Moses on. Like, again, I think it's almost like a different company has taken over Blast, right? And maybe all the people are new, or a good chunk of people are new, because it's firing on all cylinders. And again, I said it last week. It's amazing how much better your show can be when you can focus on one match at a time and one stream at a time, production-wise, technically-wise, right? Because remember, they used to do 3 streams. And they used to have to entertain the big arena with kind of its own production, right? Now the arena is much smaller. There's a couple hundred people in the building. And again, just really, really good stuff. We talked about the smart glass a little bit last week, Dark. I see you talking about it. If you're not sure what he's talking about, they have glass in front of the player booths, and it's charged. So it's got electric current going through it. When they turn it on, it makes the glass opaque. When they turn it off, you can see through it. And they do that when each round starts so that teams can't see if the other teams were flashed, right? If you leave it wide open in Counter-Strike and I can literally see you behind your monitor, if I throw a flash, I'm looking, I'm going, fuck, 2 guys flashed. Those 2 guys are in B because that's where I threw the flash. So that kind of keeps competitive integrity. Probably a pain in the ass for the camera operators when they're trying to get shots during the round because they're kind of doing this over the glass. But for competitive integrity, what a great way to kind of solve that issue. So good stuff there, the Glass Pro Series. Now let's talk a little. So again, Na'Vi finding their stride. They won it. They were the champions of this week. But we got to talk about complexity, right? The Juggernaut meme that started when Lake, thankfully he can give himself a little bit of, whew, this is working out a little better. But when he tweeted this, moments after his team lost, we were all like, whoa, bro, whoa, that's harsh. Like, literally, the team is still like coming off of the stage, basically, and he throws this out, right? And this is where the Juggernaut meme started. He's pissed, right? First off, Jason Lake comes from Counter-Strike. He started Complexity as a Counter-Strike brand back in the day, right? So, yes, they have different divisions and different games they care about now, but our boy Lake is a Counter-Strike guy, just like I'm a Counter-Strike guy, right? So, for your flagship team game that kind of inspired you to start it, you had some bad years, right? Like, he was late to getting investment, but then he landed the fucking Cowboys, which is sick. Got to build one of the greatest facilities I've ever seen when it comes to esports, if not the nicest esports facility for training and all those things for his players. But even then, it was still a meme. Like his rosters just weren't doing well, right? And big roster changes, obviously, right? Big guns. He added configs there now, right? You got Blame F, like all these different characters, right? He's now assembled this team. Kept a few guys, brought few new guys in to kind of build the Juggernaut, right? And we've been talking the last couple shows, like we want to see them on LAN, we want to see how they do. They've been really bad on online qualifiers for the major. They showed up in London, and they were a force to be reckoned with. And there's Lake, he was there, and he's always been, like if people say I'm a passionate guy, fuck, man, Lake is a passionate guy just as much, right? He lives and breathes this shit. And so he's finally getting a little bit of, positive reinforcement that the changes he's making are the right ones. Right now, this is only one 4-team event. They did lose to Na'Vi, but they 2-0'd Astralis. Astralis doesn't get 2-0'd very often, and they don't get 2-0'd by teams that aren't in the top 20 ever, right? So Well done. Well done. They also beat Vitality, and then they lost to Na'Vi, right? Good game against Na'Vi, no doubt. And even Simple, when he got interviewed, he was like, the Juggernaut meme is no longer a meme. These guys are the real deal, right? Like, they felt it in the server. This is not a joke. This is not a fluke. So, again, like, the tweet was still fucked up. I don't think anyone disagrees that the timing of the tweet was like, whoa, dude, like, holy crap. But it seems like progress, right? Like, this roster is playing well. Again, just a 4-team tournament, but it was nice to see, right? He has spent years in the doghouse when it comes to Counter-Strike. And so there's your standings. Na'Vi, Complexity, Vitality, Astralis. No one, I think, would have guessed this. And I actually think Moses actually called some of the upsets in his predictions. He's just a madman. But this was odd. Astralis doing that badly is not normal. Now, who knows? I don't know if they practiced. I don't know if they boot camped before. I don't know if they literally just came in going, yeah, we'll just use Blast itself as a warm-up. But, yeah, they got thumped, man. They got thumped. And, bravo to Na'Vi. So it was, again, a really, really good week. I think for Blast, I can't stress it enough. When you can set up and do long form in one building, your production value gets better, gets tighter. You can worry about the content and the shoulder stuff and not worrying about wiring your cameras up and loading into a building. Makes a world of difference. Next week, their last week in London, this weekend starts up. 100 Thieves, Evil Geniuses, OG, and G2 will roll into London for their week. So that should be some spicy good Counter-Strike as well. Maybe a lot more wide open with who might win that one. Again, I think everyone would have said Astralis is gonna take their week. They didn't. Again, very surprised. Color me surprised. Someone said in chat, they've only been 2-0'd 8 times in their entire existence. 8 times since this Astralis roster existed. They've been around for a while. That says a lot. They usually at least take a map. So, good stuff, Blast. Good stuff, Complexity. Nice to see the old man in Lake getting a little smile on his face and not just frustration. And obviously, shout-outs to Warden and the entire crew that runs the Counter-Strike division for Complexity. Obviously, it's not just Lake. Warden's been busting his ass in Texas for years as well, trying to build the next Juggernaut. So, bravo to him. He should get a lot of credit for this. Matt works his ass off and often has to deal with an owner that makes decisions that he doesn't get a voice in sometimes. So, in some regards, bigger hats off to you, Warden, for dealing with all the stuff of a crazy, passionate owner and the players. So, good stuff. So, last topic I want to talk about, because we are hitting almost 2-hour show. Holy shit. This is the show we're like, oh, this is a light one this week. I got some rants in today. Let's talk about this. Teabagging came up again. During the Overwatch weekend, there was some teabagging. As happens, right? I mean, Overwatch even has teabag emotes for their heroes. So obviously, Overwatch don't give a shit if you teabag. And this came up in 2018. I found an article from 2018 with Overwatch people being upset that it was unprofessional and teabagging will never be taken seriously if we're teabagging. If you don't know what teabagging is, it's the taunt of crouching on someone's face, right? Teabag, balls on someone's face, crouching, right? So, and there is a gender term. You can, if you're a female, you could be clam slamming, right? You could be clam slamming. Diversity rules in esports, right? We're not just misogynistic pigs. Everyone can teabag or clam slam or snail trail. There's a bunch of different terms for it. Anyway, and it's old. Like, this taunt is old. Ever since you could crouch on someone if their dead body was there, right? Also comes from a time when there was no chat. You couldn't taunt anyone with text, nor could you verbalize your taunting. So anyway, it blew up. Guys tweeted that, has no place. And so all of us, angry old guys were like, shut the fuck up. What are you talking about? Really disappointed. Really disappointed. You'd never see that. I got to read this one. You'd never see that behavior in any established sport. If esports wants to be taken seriously, decorum and professionalism should be a responsibility of the players. Okay. Now, professional sports, what you see and what happens are also not the same thing. If you mic'd up the offensive line of a football team, you would hear shit that you would fucking cringe at, right? And I would say that there's no place for homophobia, there's no place for racist stuff, but those guys are trash talking each other. He brings up UFC. You tell me Conor McGregor is not leaning into someone's ear and going, "I fucked your mom last night, mate. She wasn't that good, mate." Like, trash talking is as old as competitive anything, right? It's just a fun trash talk. But where it got really weird, because you could say there's a time and a place for trash talk, and maybe you shouldn't trash talk. But then it got even weirder because all of a sudden now teabagging is part of rape culture. And if you support teabagging, you support rape culture because the act of teabagging is very rapey. Shut the fuck up with that nonsense. First off, tell me how many statistics of people in the real world are teabagging and then pressing charges. He teabagged me. She teabagged me. Like, so to throw it into a very, very strong world of rape that does happen and is horrible, like, is just disingenuous to the even discussion about trash talking, right? There's nothing rapey about teabagging, right? It's just such a fucked up, like, lack of logic to reach all the way over there, especially when you're okay with me shooting a guy in the fucking face, right? That's okay. That's okay for me to kill someone virtually, for me to blow someone up virtually, whatever esports you want to pick. But after I did that, I did this, and that's the problem. Maybe I'm too old, but, like, to me, it's trash talking, it's funny, it's good trash talk. It's like, aha, you got teabagged. But, like, to think that anyone is doing it going, I'm raping someone, I'm raping them, yep, raping them, rape's good. It's so beyond the grasp of logic and, like, rational thought that I had to talk about it this week, right? You know, because when we all got, all the old esports pundits are agreeing that rape culture is cool. I'm like, now you're just putting words in our mouths, right? Like, it's just fucking trash talk. And again, if you mic'd up anyone in professional sports when they didn't necessarily, when they didn't know they were mic'd up, the shit you would fucking hear would definitely make you go, well, NFL is never going to be professional if we let linemen talk like that to each other, right? Now, yeah, they're not mic'd up, so you don't hear it. And you don't even see all the teabags because they happen so quick, and, like, an observer can't be everywhere. So, like, the fact that he was so disappointed, and again, this comes back to this Overwatch fan base of like no one in Counter-Strike, no one in our world would ever even go down this road, right? Is that because we're all into rape culture? Or because we understand it's just a taunt in-game and a very violent game at that, and it's ha ha ha, it's fun, and if anything, it pisses off that guy, which is what you're trying to do, right? I'm like, I got to talk about this, right? Now, we went back and forth on this graphic. Finally, we won. Jason felt there's actually someone made teabag.
There is so many sound bites from this clip that, like, I'm going to cut it from the fucking show.
So, yeah, and again, like, it's just like, it's one thing to say, hey, man, trash talk, let's chill on it, and here's X, Y, and Z, Y. But, like, to lean into that it's rapey and it's sexual assault. It's virtual sexual assault. I can't grasp it. I can't grasp the logic in that leap of faith I have to take, right? Overwatch fans, man. Not all of them, but some of them are a very, very strange breed. I think we're now seeing the adults that were the first kids that won the participation trophies when they were terrible in sports or terrible in anything. This is the participation trophy generation all grown up and there's shit to be outraged about and there's shit not to be outraged about, right? Teabagging in Overwatch is not really worthy of outrage, right? But again, these guys also banned the Peppy meme. They banned the OK symbol. Like, it's just fucking insane, right? Yeah, as Richard would often say, reasonable? Probably not. Anyway, there's my rant on teabagging. If you get a chance today while you're playing a game, teabag someone for me. Give them a nice friendly teabag. Don't rape them. Don't insinuate you're going to rape them. Just teabag them. Friendly little teabag amongst friends. Or clam slam for the viewers. Or whatever binary gender you are, let's figure out a term that you can use to gently drop your ass on someone's face, you know, because everyone's got an ass. All right, let's do it. Let's get into Q&A. Hit me. What do you got, buddy?
Lots of embarrassment. No. First up, what about the North Ferrero video?
Oh, God. Yeah, North. What Jason's alluding to is this right here. So their coach, they replaced their coach. Myth was their coach. Mithy was their coach. This is their farewell video on saying goodbye to Fithy. Mithy with an M. Sorry, not Fithy. Fithy is a different guy. To our fallen brothers and soldiers, we salute you. Yeah, Mythar. Anyway, so a bunch of us first saw the Viking funeral. When someone dies in Norse mythology, they funeral pyre them. They put them in a boat, they ship them off, they fire an arrow, and they burn the boat as it heads out to the sea, right? That means someone died in that culture, all right? And so they put him in a boat, they killed him. So a lot of us were like, wait, did he die? Did they fire him? Did they die? And a lot of it was tongue-in-cheek, but like, who thought that was a good way to say goodbye to the guy? Because again, why, like, that did pop into all our brains, like, wait a minute, that's what you do when someone's dead. Like, literally, that's what you do when someone's dead. So, like, he even tweeted, he's like, by the way, I am not dead. I am just no longer working for North, but I'll never say North again. And then they brought Jumpy in, who's coming to replace him. But it was just again, for a lot of us, another, like, toe stub by North, social media, right? And that, yeah, there's a show on Netflix called Norseman. That is the last couple of years there's been a lot of Viking shows. Vikings is the name of a show, really good Viking show. There's a bunch of them, right? And so Norseman is a parody of the shows, right? Really, really funny on Netflix. I think it comes out of Denmark, and it's got a scene where the chieftain of the tribe, of the clan, someone's died, and like he has to shoot the arrow, right? His job, he thought, I'll shoot the arrow, right? And so they light it, he misses, and he's like a terrible chieftain, is a bumbling fool, and he keeps like missing, right? And the way it works is if you don't get lit up and you don't get sent out to sea that way, you don't go to Valhalla, right? You don't continue on your journey as a Viking, right? So everyone around him like, want me to shoot it? Want me to shoot it? He's like, no, I got it. And he keeps fucking missing. But great show anyway. Total tangent. But again, even that was mocking, like the guy was dead, right? So just weird stuff out of North, man. Anyway, Myth is still looking for a job. If you need a coach, hit him up. He wants to stay in the business. Next question, sir.
All right, next question for you. So, hang on. Gotta wait for this ad to play.
Wait, what?
All right, we're back on.
Crunch time!
So,
Crunch time!
Let's go. What is your thoughts on the IEM Melbourne versus the player bit break? I know some of the players have complained.
Yeah, I mean, so bring it up to speed. IEM Melbourne was announced. It starts a few days after the summer player break, with travel starting the day of the last day of the player break. Player break is meant to be July 15th to August 15th. So technically, ESL is abiding by that. I don't think the players are super upset about it. What is agreed upon in the agreements is that these TOs respect the player break, just like Valve has decided to respect the player break. So in that sense, ESL is respecting the player break, right? Player break ends on the 15th, you get on an airplane on the 15th, right? The problem is the reality of it, and Yanko brought it up when he was on HLTV Confirmed show, is that that's all well and good. But in all reality, for us to prepare to get on the airplane, to go to that tournament, we technically have to start practicing and probably have a boot camp during the last week or two of our break, right? And the gentleman's agreement that was kind of in place before any real agreements were in place between the players and these TOs or Valve even was like, hey, let's all take that month. And again, remember, I talked about this a lot. It's called the player break, but it's a break for everybody. It's a break for casters, a break for TOs, a break for team owners, our Counter-Strike division staff within team owner worlds. You know, it's a break for our ecosystem, right? Everyone gets to go on vacation, right? So the issue is, though, where do you draw the line, right? They're abiding by the player break. What used to be the loose thing was, hey, 4 weeks for the break, and then these next 2 weeks should be online qualifiers only, so that nothing super important is happening, so that we can still have our nice chunky break, and then the online qualifiers we do right after, but we're not traveling, we're not necessarily boot camping for them, we're just getting back in the mix of it, right? The problem is you can just keep drawing that window out, right? You only have X amount of days, right? I don't see a lot of angst from the players being very pissed off about it. Like, I think they understand that weekends are limited. It's not like they stepped on the break in the sense of it's the week into the break. It's not like Valve where the major was right after the break. So it's unfortunate, but I think there's no. It's just the nature of the world we live in. You can't take 6 weeks off anymore, right? Or you can't do 4 and 2 because those 2 weekends after the break need to be used for something real, especially when Valve is adding that we need to do some stops and rank them to get people to the major, right? Now we haven't heard if Melbourne's going to be one of those stops, but I think you just. It's a never-ending cycle. If you go, yeah, we just need 2 more weeks. Like I think the idea of the player break being a month means you actually, and it's not meant to be also that players like literally don't do shit for a month. It means that they wind down of their season, they all take a week or 2 and truly go somewhere with their friends and family. Then they come back in, they might have done roster changes, and they slowly ramp back in. So I think it's disingenuous to think that the players want 30 days with 0 work. The idea is it's meant to be a break from tournament play. Not like you're off work, you don't have to do any Counter-Strike, you don't have to blog, you don't have to stream, you don't have to do anything. It's meant to stop the tournaments so you can take kind of that more break. So I think it's just the nature of it, that the teams that want to go to Melbourne are going to have to fire up towards the end of their break, right? I'm still happy that we're in a world that anyone is even recognizing some sort of break. Because we're not too long ago, Valve didn't give a fuck about the breaks, and their major system fucked up everyone's break. So, again, always going to be a work in progress, but I don't think the answer is let's ask for 6 weeks. Because then you've got the end of 6 weeks and then the 7th and the 8th week, right? Now we're still in that same limbo area. So, define it. It would be nice if, and the only thing that happened right afterwards were fluffy, less important things, but I am Melbourne's important. That's a big event, right? And if they make it a ranking event, it becomes even more important for a lot of the teams. If it's not a ranking event, and teams feel that they don't want, here's the solution, right? You've already fought and got a 4-week break. If you still don't like that next event, don't go. Now, if it's a major ranking event, harder conversation to have. But if you think it's fucking with your break and your guys are on vacation and you're not going to be prepped for it, don't take the invite. Don't try to qualify for it. Don't go, right? Again, if it's a qualifying event, you got to fucking go because you're trying to get major points. But there is a world we live in that teams and players maybe need to, and Chad and these guys talked about it on their last show, or Half-Life TV confirmed, just start saying no more. Start saying no more, right? Except that you can't go. You can't go everywhere at all times. And if it really, you think it's fucking with your break, then don't go, right? And then that's a way you can teach the TOs, like, hey, man, we're all saying no for a reason here. The quality of your event's going to go down, so rethink this, But again, I think, to me, it's kind of a minor thing. I don't see a lot of the players in the players' channels, like, losing their minds over it, because they also understand the world they live in, right? The realities of the world they live in. Yeah, it's great we got 4 weeks, but, like, we can't keep asking for more time. Like, these TOs have to get rolling. We have to get the season going. So I think it's probably a bigger issue in the Twitter sphere than it is in the player sphere, if that makes sense, which is nice for a change, right? All right, next question.
Any early thoughts on Project A?
Ooh, good question. Yeah. Henry G dropped a big set of tweets yesterday that he was invited to play Project A. If you haven't seen it, it's definitely a nice chunk of info. It's multiple tweets threaded together about gunplay, about abilities, about how much it's like Counter-Strike. I think the banger is the one he gave at the end. Best game he's played since CSGO is what Henry G has said. So very excited. And then Pasha tweeted that he was part of this playtest, and he tweeted a couple other big-name people that were part of the playtest. So I think I'm really excited to see what this game is and play it for sure. I don't know if it'll be a Counter-Strike killer per se, but it could take some of our market share. Riot is a huge global company, and they give this game away for free. In all the regions that League of Legends has played, it could very quickly become the fastest, biggest FPS we have, right? Now, are they going to embrace it? Are they going to franchise it? Are they going to let third parties do esports? Who knows? But guys like Henry, asking them to play, getting their feedback, guys like Pasha, that's good stuff, right? Get a bunch of different FPSs from different games to beat the fuck out of your game. And tell you, Henry's not getting paid to do this, right? So taking their honest feedback, and again, this game also has Sal Garazzo involved, right? Volcano, our boy Volcano from Counter-Strike is on the dev team, right? He ain't going to make a fucking terrible game, right? Will it? So we'll see. We'll see how it does. I think we still have to wait till 2021 to play this thing. I'd really love to get into the beta test and start playing it as soon as we can. Jason and I have talked about wanting to be kind of content creators. If we like this game and it's a vibe we dig, let's do not peek towards it. Because obviously we love Counter-Strike, but there's lots of games out there. But again, I think Henry's tweets are really solid endorsement of that the game's got some legs to it. And again, Riot is a huge company, so we'll see what they put behind it. That's it for us? All right. That's my last question, folks. Thanks for sticking. 2-hour show this week. Sorry, Jason, this was going to be a light show. It's always the opposite. I'm like, we don't have a lot to talk about. Yeah, should be light. 2-hour show. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back next Wednesday. Tonight I will do a rebroadcast on Twitch at 7 p.m. my time. It's 6 o'clock Pacific if you want to watch it, or you came in late, you want to watch it with me and ask me questions. And then tomorrow it'll be on the YouTubes. It'll be on all our podcast channels for audio only. Thank you very much for watching. Much love. Be good to each other out there, or something like that.